Let's talk about the hidden blueprint of your organization. Yeah, those unwritten rules that seem to dictate everything. We're going to uncover that blueprint today and reveal the surprising role you play as its architect. You know that feeling, right? You walk into a new job, and it's like there's this invisible force field telling you how to act, what to say, and how things really get done around here. It's definitely not in the employee handbook, but it's way more powerful than any written policy. The great organizational theorist Edgar Schein just hits the nail on the head here. This invisible force, it's called culture. And what he's saying is, if you don't get how it works, you don't just work in it, you can actually become a victim of it. It's that powerful. So why does getting a handle on this matter so much? Well, leadership expert John C. Maxwell gives us a perfect way to think about it with his law of the lid. Basically, your ability as a leader puts a ceiling, a lid, on how effective you can be. And guess what? The ability to understand and shape culture is one of the biggest parts of leadership. If you get this wrong, you're putting a lid on the potential of your entire organization. This really brings us to the central mystery we're trying to solve. If this cultural blueprint is so powerful, who the heck draws it up in the first place? Where do these unwritten rules even come from? Well, that's exactly what we're about to find out. All right, so to find the architect, we first have to deconstruct the blueprint itself. And for that, we're going to turn back to Edgar Schein because he gives us this brilliant model for breaking culture down into its core parts. I love this way of looking at it. Think of culture like an iceberg. What we see on the surface is just a tiny, tiny fraction of what's really going on. There's 3 levels, and the most powerful ones, they're hidden deep, deep beneath the surface. Okay, so at the very top, the part sticking out of the water, we have what are called artifacts. This is all the obvious stuff you can spot right away. Is it an open plan office, or is everyone tucked away behind closed doors? Do people wear suits, or is it a hoodie and sneakers kind of place? It's the tangible stuff, what you can see, hear, and feel.
Now, right at the waterline, we've got the espoused values. This is the mission statement you see hanging in the lobby. It's the values listed on the website, innovation, integrity, teamwork. It's what the company says it values, but as we all know, that's not always the full story, is it?
And that brings us to the huge hidden base of the iceberg, basic underlying assumptions. These are the deep, unconscious, taken-for-granted beliefs that actually drive all the behavior. They're not written down anywhere, they're hardly ever even talked about, but they are the absolute core of a company's culture. This is the way we really do things around here. So here's the bottom line. If you really want to understand a culture or even try to change it, you can't just look at the office layout or read the company values. No, you have to go deeper. You have to get down to this invisible level because this is where the real blueprint is written. Okay, so now that we get the blueprint, we can finally answer our big question. Who is the architect? And boom, there's our answer. Schein tells us that leaders, especially founders, are the original source. It's their personal beliefs, their gut feelings on how to solve problems, their own values. That's what gets a new group off the ground. And if those beliefs actually work, if they lead to success, they stop being just the leader's ideas. They slowly become the group's shared unconscious assumptions. They become the culture. And this just illustrates the point perfectly. Take a look at these 2 companies from Schein's research. At DEC, the founder's core belief was that truth comes from conflict and debate. So what happened? The behavior was that fierce arguments were actually encouraged. And the artifact? An open office layout designed to spark more interaction. Now look at Ciba Geigy. Their founder believed truth came from authority and expertise. This led to a behavior where managers protected their turf. And the artifact? Closed-door offices to protect focus. See? 2 different founders, 2 totally different core assumptions, leading to 2 completely different cultural blueprints. It's amazing. This whole idea really builds on a classic distinction from a leadership thinker, Warren Bennis. A manager, they administer the building that's already there. They focus on systems, on doing things right. But a leader innovates. They focus on people and on doing the right thing. Leaders aren't just maintaining the structure. They are the architects who design it from the ground up. So how does a leader actually do this? What are the tools in the architect's toolkit? How do you embed your assumptions into the very foundation of an organization? Schein points to 6 key tools, and it's not about big, fancy speeches, it's all about consistent, everyday action. What do you as a leader pay attention to? Because what gets measured gets done. How do you react in a crisis? That tells everyone what really matters. Where does the money actually go? And who gets hired, who gets promoted, who gets let go? These daily decisions are the hammer and nails you use to build your culture. And this is where it all ties together so perfectly. John C. Maxwell reminds us that trust is the absolute foundation of leadership. When your actions, all those things on the last slide, are consistent, you build character. And that character builds trust. It's that trust that allows your assumptions to be accepted and embedded as the organization's culture. Without trust, that blueprint is just a piece of paper. But here's the final and maybe the most fascinating twist in this whole story. The cultural building you design, well, it doesn't just sit there. Once it's built, it actually starts to shape the people inside it. This is an incredibly powerful self-reinforcing loop. The process doesn't just stop with the founder. The culture they created takes on a life of its own. It becomes an active force that starts to shape what leadership even looks like for generations to come. So the culture starts to act like a filter. It begins to select new hires who already fit the existing mold. It promotes people who perfectly represent its core assumptions. Now, over time, this can be a huge strength, right? It creates consistency, alignment, but it can also become a massive barrier, preventing the very changes the organization needs to survive. And that brings everything right back around to you. Your actions, your reactions, what you choose to pay attention to, it's all sending signals. You are constantly contributing to the cultural blueprint, whether you realize it or not. The only real choice you have is whether you do it by default or by design. So the question really isn't if you're a culture architect. You are. The question is, what kind of architect are you choosing to be? Are you consciously and carefully designing a blueprint that builds up your team and your organization, or are you just letting it happen by accident? Are you building with intention?